views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Darren Jaime, and today we're going to update you on what's happening in and around our community. Coming up on today's show, we're going to have an in-depth conversation on gentrification in the Bronx from two opposing viewpoints. Then we'll talk to a woman leading the charge in leadership, business coaching, and entrepreneurship for women. We'll introduce you to her in just a few moments. And then a question: why do real men wear pink? Councilmember Andy King will tell us why. And then after that, we'll talk to a well-known graffiti artist and activist on art in the Bronx and some recent controversy. All this and much more is heading your way. We want you to stay tuned because right now, we're officially open. Hello everyone, I'm your host Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, August the 10th. Of course, you're watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. Now, we want to encourage you to stay connected to us. You can find out more about us on Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, kicking things off, our first guest join us today discussing gentrification in the Bronx, a hot topic. Many people are concerned about the South Bronx and the gentrification and the alleged gentrification that's taking place. Some people say gentrification is good for the borough, others bad. We welcome our political commentator, J.C. Polanco, and Ed Garcia in here with us today. And both of you, want to welcome you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. So as we talk a little bit, Ed, I know that you have some very strong feelings. You voiced them. You had a blog out here in the Bronx talking about the borough of the Bronx and the gentrification. Many people have said that the Bronx is being gentrified. Some people say, no, it's not. Your thought?
The Bronx is definitely being gentrified when you look at pockets in Port Morris, when you look at businesses that are already being displaced. If you go to 3rd Avenue and the Hub, there are right now 5 big stores that have been priced out because their leases were up, and all of a sudden the landlords jacked up their rents to rents that they can't even afford anymore. So when you have big name stores that have been there for 30 years and are being pushed out because of the rents, clearly that's one indicator of gentrification. Then you have speculative purchases, case in point Rubenstein, who purchased properties that were well above market value. I'm a real estate appraiser by trade, that's my background, and jacking up prices in the neighborhood that are far beyond the reach for the average Joe that wants to try to make it.
And so when we talk about gentrification, JC, you think that gentrification is good for the borough?
Yeah, first of all, Ed does a great job. He has a great blog that has a lot of hits every single week, and I think he does a very good job as far as getting news out to Bronxites, just like you do. So I think that's a good thing, and thank you for having it. On this issue, though, I disagree with you, Ed. I think that gentrification is code word. Sadly, when you study the word, it's just code. It's a dog whistle that many activists use. That it's really anti-white, anti-new, anti-progress, and it's very offensive in my opinion. I have had thousands of students in my career as a professor, and there are many students that in the last few years have come to me and said they don't feel welcome when they come and live in certain parts of the Bronx and in Brooklyn and in Queens because activists turn on them regularly. They're consistently attacking them for coming into the neighborhood and, as you heard, jacking up prices and making things worse for the people that live there. And I don't think that's fair. I think that what many activists that are against progress are demanding is some sort of real social engineering that would go against progress, that would go against the natural fluctuations of business and rents. And by the way, Ed, rents have only gone up on an average of 1% in the Bronx, and you compare it nationwide, it's pretty much average. So this out of control thing that you're discussing isn't really the case here in the Bronx. And for the first time, one more thing, I'm sorry, Ed, for the first time, we are looking at people trying to come in and move in and be part of the Bronx, as opposed to move out and run away from the Bronx like so many did when we were growing up.
That's actually factually incorrect. The Bronx actually, just recently, a couple of weeks ago, there was an article that spoke about how the Bronx actually has the highest percentage of rent increases for one bedrooms.
No, I said on
And
the
so-
average, Ed. On the average,
well, on the
and I
average,
also
but
said
on
the
the, but on,
article,
yeah, and on
it
the
said
average,
is
the Bronx
1%, it's
actually has the
national.
highest. The Bronx is also the poorest. The Bronx also has the least amount of home ownership at 18.2%. That means that there's 72% people that don't own property, and those are the ones who got affected by gentrification. Now, when you have people who say that they feel not welcomed, generally these gentrifiers, when they come into the neighborhood, they don't want to be a part of the fabric of the neighborhood. They rather create their own little environment. Again, look, you could just look at Port Morris. What is Rubenstein doing down there? He's installing his own little businesses and creating his vision of what the neighborhood should be and not the vision of what the residents want.
Let me ask a question, JC, because when you talked about people moving in, some opponents say, listen, it's not just about people moving in, it's about people being forced out.
Well, you know what? Again, that's activist talk to excite their base, and it's true. This idea that landlords are coming into your apartment and taking you out is just false. It's not happening, and quite the opposite is happening. Take a look at the Bronx. You know, we've had over 23,000 new housing units in the last 9 years. And when I talk about people wanting to come in and be part of our fabric and invest in our communities, you know, when I was growing up and when you were growing up, I know here in the Bronx, we were dodging drug dealers and bullets. Today, our kids are dodging butterflies and maybe a mosquito. We have people that would never invest $1 in the Bronx, and in the last 9 years have invested over $10 billion right here in our borough. People like me are leaving, going to college, and coming back and want to be part of our fabric, and we can't afford the rent for affordable housing because we make too much money, and we can't afford to buy a house because we make too little money. So then we have a whole group of people that are in the in-between that I don't think Ed and his activists are really taking a look at. How do we serve the people that are part of the Bronx, that want to be part of the Bronx, that want to come back and contribute to the Bronx? And I think that in the last 9 years, and I know I'm a Republican, but I got to give him credit, the borough president has done a phenomenal job bringing development and investment into the Bronx.
And I know you disagree wholeheartedly.
Completely, because first of all, we have the myth of affordable housing. It's not affordable for who? Just like you said, it's not affordable for the professionals that want to move in, and then it's also not affordable to over 50% generally of the population in the neighborhood. So what is affordable? You know, like when you have for a family of four, $63,000. Meanwhile, the average family of four in the same district is only making $24,000. It's not affordable to that person. But yet that family is paying much higher rent than they would in an affordable housing development. They're paying generally over 55% of their income on rent. And then, I don't know if you can disagree with that, but that's again fact. The Bronx has the highest rent burden in the city, and also one of the highest in the country.
There are a lot of reasons. You know, not only is anywhere
Yeah.
you go, home ownership is expensive, but you know, when you go into home ownership, it requires things as far as having a down payment for a home. These are things that a lot of people don't have the availability to get, and it takes a while, especially for young professionals. Which is why I think it's a good thing that, including in that borough president's plan for the 23,000 new affordable housing that we have in the Bronx, they've also decreased the AMI that was necessary to have young professionals come in. So I really have a problem when activists come out against gentrification simply because I think it's a dog whistle. And I think what we're saying is we want to be social engineers, create a community where rents are going to be very low, where newcomers aren't welcomed, and somehow that's going to be a utopia for the Bronx where landlords are going to be able to pay their bills. It's just impossible.
All right, well, how do you create the scenario then? Because you have people who are watching right now, and they live and they're paying $400 to $600 a month, sometimes $800 a month, and yet and still you've got condos right next to you, $400,000, $500,000. What's the message to them? Because obviously they feel as though the handwriting's on the wall. They're out of here in a few moments.
What do you mean that they're out of here in a few moments? Ed.
Darren.
I know
Right.
Darren. I'm just looking at Ed this whole time. Because I got to tell you, it's just not the case. I mean, the idea that you're going to have...
What's not the case?
It's not the case that the landlord's going to come out and take you out. We have laws to protect people that are renting. This is one of those myths that go out there to scare the public so they can get excited and become anti-whatever gentrification, social engineering message is coming out of some activists. But the reality is that this is the natural progression of things when things are going well. When we want our leaders to fight against crime, when we want our leaders to bring jobs, when we want our leaders to make the Bronx a good place to live, work, and raise a family like the borough president's doing, we're going to have new people coming in and want to be part of it. And guess what? The natural progress of the market is going to take some of those rents and make them from the $400 that is well below market value to something that can be more market value. And I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that when we look at the rents that some people are paying, these rents pay for the bills that many of these landlords have to pay. And how can we be okay with people paying a couple $100s a month, knowing full well that oil costs the same, gas costs the same, the insurance costs the same for the landlords? How are we going to have good housing where people can live and raise their families if the landlord isn't paying the bill to be able to sustain
Let me
them.
let Ed jump in.
So I just want to address the fact that why are people flocking to the Bronx? Because they've been priced out of every single borough in the city from the gentrifying neighborhoods of Harlem. You have a lot of people from Harlem and Washington Heights that are moving into the Bronx because they've been priced out of there, again, because of gentrification, not because
Wow, that's not true. The Bronx
It
is
is
a beautiful
true.
place.
No,
we have the Bronx Zoo,
saying
the
that-
Bronx
you're
Botanical
saying-
you're
Gardens.
just saying that
we
there's
have
no
beautiful
motive.
culture that you've
Of course
put on
we
your
do.
blog. You're always
But
showing
you're
us
saying
this
there's no
beautiful
motive
beauty.
that it has nothing to do with being priced
I'm
out
sure
and
there are
rented
many
out.
reasons, but you are exposing every day the wonderful things about the Bronx in your blog.
Exactly.
Those are reasons why people are coming in. How can we say that the only reason that people want to be part of the Bronx is because it's cheap? That's just not true.
The data says so.
No, but
I mean,
that's
the
not,
data's
the data
right
does not
there.
say that. The
It
data
shows.
says we have a borough filled with colleges and universities, with the Bronx Zoo. We have many high schools. We have beautiful museums. We have things that you've put on your blog that make
Absolutely.
me excited, and people want to be part of it. How can we say it's just because it's cheap? It's just not a fair assessment.
It's the reality of the market.
No way, Ed. I don't believe
reality
it.
of the market.
Where do you see the Bronx going over the next few years?
I think Ed's going to keep writing some good things about the Bronx. He's going to get people excited to come be part of it. It's true, and I think that we see the natural progress of things when people do the right thing. When our leaders are doing their job, crime decreases, people want to come and invest, and we're going to have newcomers want to flock in and be part of our fabric. We need to be welcoming as opposed to pushing these people away.
Well, gentrification is not like, you're saying like how neighborhoods, it's a natural progression. Gentrification is wiping out basically the working class from these neighborhoods. Look at Chelsea, look at Lower East Side, look at Harlem, look at Williamsburg, look at all these neighborhoods where it was predominantly, it had nothing to do with race generally. When you look at it on a global scale, it's an economic issue. It just happens to be a racial component to it in America because we can't escape that. That's how the system was created here. So it's not, it's not as easy as you painted that this is like the natural progression, because you look at the histories of all our neighborhoods in the Bronx, and they've generally been very stable working class neighborhoods for the most part. Now,
Not when we were growing up, Ed. And when we were growing up in the
my
Bronx,
family was working.
No,
and my
but we
neighbors
were.
were
No, I
working,
know
so it
that
was
in your
working
family,
class,
but
yeah.
when we look at the Bronx,
Yeah.
especially where I was, and it was a disaster. I lived on Crescent and 84th Street. But as you know, when we were growing up, the Bronx was not a good place. The place was terrible. Now homicides are lower than they've ever been before in the Bronx. We had over 3,000 people across the city being killed when we were growing up. This is a whole new city. This is a whole new environment. It's a natural progression of things when people
is
invest
it
in
a
their
whole
community.
new city based on the fact of you have development and what people have alleged with gentrification? You have this
See, there you go again,
overdevelopment.
gentrification. Darren, when you talk about gentrification the way you do, you're making it a negative. I think that it's not a negative to have new people coming into your community
It's not
and
a
wanting
negative.
to
It's
invest.
not, Jay.
You know
Jay,
what?
see,
We didn't
you
have
can't-
any
you can't
jobs.
say-
It's
you-
not a
you-
negative, Darren.
It's not negative, right?
But it's a dog whistle.
Well, you call it a dog whistle.
It is, because when you say gentrification, what are you thinking?
You're thinking
Are you
people
thinking
moving
J.C.
out.
Polanco coming back to the Bronx?
But you talk halfway about people coming into.
Sure,
into.
that's a
But
good
let's
thing.
talk about the other people who go out.
Yeah, you know what we called it then? You know what
What
we
do you
called
call
it?
that?
White flight. Remember those? Remember those terms we learned in
No,
school?
no, absolutely.
When people
But Jay-
disappeared from the Grand Concourse and took those jobs with them, then everything fell apart and people didn't have jobs and our communities fell into disarray. Now the borough president's office and our community leaders are working towards changing things around. And instead of white flight, you have new flight coming into the Bronx and people bringing their money in and hiring people.
So
in the
when
Bronx.
we talk about Harlem itself, you wouldn't believe that Harlem is gentrified?
I think Harlem is going through an incredible progression. There's a Harlem Renaissance. Why is every
code word for
Renaissance?
gentrification.
No,
Yeah.
Renaissance is a rebirth.
That's code word for
It's called a
gentrification.
rebirth. It's called reinvestment. It's called, instead of people
If
flying
you're
out,
reinvesting
coming
in the community, you invest in the people who live there. You
Yeah,
don't
but
force them out.
how do you invest other than bringing jobs in, and you bring those businesses in, and you bring those new buildings in?
At what
Since when does that
expense? You've
become
got the
negative?
mom and pop business that goes out the door.
There is
I
no
can-
mom and pop business.
There's no mom and pop
There
business in
there
Har-
is no mom and pop business that
Where?
can sustain the
Where?
economies of these communities.
Okay, you
Where-
just
where-
answered
where-
our question right
No,
there.
Where? Can you
just
tell me
answered-
where?
You just answered our
What
own question about
bodega growing
gentrification.
up did you see in our communities that were hiring young people left and right? They weren't. We had high unemployment in our communities.
I don't know what Bronx you were
I
in.
don't know. Well, I lived on Fordham Road and Creston
know what Bronx
Avenue.
you were in.
I don't know what bodega
Yeah.
was hiring and bringing all these jobs for these young people to be part of. I don't know what investor was bringing in new buildings for us to rent in. We finally have that happening, and I think that's a very good thing. You know what the
And I
opposite
don't
is?
think the
People flying out.
But I don't think that people disagree with the fact that you have these things happening. It's nice that certain things happen.
Oh, you want it to happen without the new people participating in it.
The
You
new
want to
people-
just throw money and say, hey,
No.
here's a building and here's a business?
No, it's not about new people coming in. We're talking about the people being forced out. Come on, JC. Let's
Come
talk-
on, you know it's about new people
It is
coming in.
not.
You know it scares people.
No,
It does.
I think
I
people
speak
would
to
be
my
fine-
students all the time.
I think people would be fine when you're talking about people coming in and people not having to leave. You're talking about the amount of people that are leaving. The reason why the Bronx is having overcrowding right now is because
overcrowding.
Yes, overcrowding.
Wait. No, so now we have too many people coming in. Is that
from where?
We're actually.
Oh, there we go. Does it matter
again,
from where? Does it matter to you from where these people want to be?
If people are having to leave Manhattan,
it's only
to come to the Bronx.
Darren and Ed would fight a $10 billion investment in the Bronx in the last 7 years.
And only
how could you fight me on that?
No, but there's a myth. I have to address this. There's a myth that being anti-gentrification is anti-progress. That is the biggest lie that everybody that's pro-gentrification, but that doesn't mean that we're anti-progress. We're not anti-progress. We're anti-gentrification. We're anti-displacement. We're
anti-investment.
Gentrification is violence. That is violence
because
it is violence because people are paying what? More than over 50% of their income because they can't afford it anymore as the rents start creeping up. Then you have landlords, this is a fact, that are trying to buy out families, trying to say, oh, here's $5,000, move out. You can't move out on $5,000.
But you don't have to move out. See, that's the beauty of it. There's laws protecting. Ed, you don't have to move out.
Clearly, but what if a low-income family that doesn't have money, they'll see that as a carrot and they're like, hey, why not? You know,
the reality is that the Bronx in the last 9 years has seen 23,000 new housing units in the borough. We've seen incredible investment. From where I grew up in the Bronx now, it's completely different. Over $10 billion in investment in the Bronx, that's huge. And if you look to your left and you look to your right, it's development after development, jobs after jobs. The mall opened up in Bay Plaza. We have thousands of people working that weren't working before.
Low-wage jobs.
We've had unemployment decrease for the first time in 9 years. We've decreased to now about 6% unemployment, where we were hovering in the high 11s.
And we're still
That's
underemployed.
incredible. But still, those are huge progresses that you cannot argue against. And I think that we're going in the right track. How can we say no to what's happening in the Bronx?
I gotta say no right now because we gotta go.
And I love Ed, by the way. Ed's a good guy. I hope he doesn't beat me up after.
We'll see. JC, Ed, thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
All right, listen, taking a quick break. Got more news, but when we return, we're gonna find out about a woman's work in business and coaching, and we'll let you know how she's making an impact right here in our borough. Stay with us. Coming right back, right after this.
You got to learn your body, pace yourself, and have fun. So let's go have fun. Let's go do it. The tricky thing about shoulders, your shoulders is a 3-tier muscle. You have your front delt, you have your rear delts, and you have your mid delt. So when you're working out your shoulders properly, you have to do 3 different exercises.
It's wonderful being able to compete with a lot of these young guys from all over the world. It's important to stay in shape.
Every Monday night at 9, we talk to the borough's movers and shakers about the latest in Bronx politics, education, healthcare, arts and culture, and literally any and everything that's important to the people of the Bronx. There's a reason why Bronxites have been turning to Bronx Talk for more than 20 years, because Bronx Talk is about you and me, the people of the Bronx. So we'll see you Monday night at 9.
Hi, I'm David Lesh, legal correspondent to the morning show Open. If you have a legal question that you'd like me to answer, please send me an email at davidlesh@bronxnet.org, and I will address it on our Ask Your Lawyer segment.
Well, working with young people on health and fitness, team leadership skills, and business readiness, one woman is making a difference, and we're pleased to welcome right back to the set of Open, Heidi Burkhart, to the show, and good to have you.
Thank you very much.
I know you're pretty busy around these parts, and you heard JC in the whole conversation, right?
Yeah, I did.
Did you have a little take on it, or what?
I'm in affordable housing for the past 14 years. That's my entrepreneurship aspect. So I've owned a company since 2008 when it took a downturn. Affordable housing, yes, on JC's point, the developers, when they come into the Bronx, they normally will be developing affordable housing. So that's for the low, moderate, and middle income. And the majority of buildings will be for those income levels. So with the units he was talking about, they are actually aiding in the people that are here and creating more affordable housing for those individuals. The thing that is disappointing is that there's a lottery system to get into those units, and that lottery system is open to all of New York City, not just the Bronx natives. So that's the unfortunate part. But there is a lot more housing that's created here, and with the businesses that have been brought in, it creates more jobs for everybody. I also think it creates hope for people seeing a different area of the community being redeveloped, and for the younger professionals, I think it spurs entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is huge in the U.S. You know, we definitely want it, and in that regard, it helps unemployment rates too, because the more entrepreneurship, the more jobs that are created. And then, you know, the millennials and the generations that are coming up, they are very more entrepreneurial with the social media aspects that are available, and the way that through social media we are all tied very worldly now, not just within our own communities, but through social media we have access to reach out to people in Brazil and to Australia. So it's really cool to see how the younger generation uses that, as well as us trying to get acquainted to it. I didn't necessarily grow up with it.
Right.
But yeah, so I think it's a great thing. You know, I think JC's right. It is great to have that influx of capital coming into the Bronx, because where else would it go? You want it to go to Manhattan? You know, no, you want it to come to you. And unfortunately, that is progression. I don't see it as gentrification either. I see it as progression, because I do see gentrification as a negative term. So.
Yeah, well, some people do say gentrification is real. I know that there's and we'll have more, of course, on this in the time to come, because we can't do gentrification on the whole show. We'll come back later on. But listen, I want to talk a little bit about your work too.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't familiar with you, the work that you do, share a little bit.
Yep, so I started a company, well, I actually started in real estate brokerage when I was to the day 21 years old, and I've been in it for the past 14 years. 2008, when the market downturned, I had the blessing of a lot of my friends in the industry pushing me to start my own company. Not the best time in 2008 by any stretch of the means. A lot of banks went under, but through the support of my clients and my friends, I started my own company. And since then, I've done over 1.3 billion worth of sales of just affordable housing. So what I do is I actually sell the buildings, not the units, although we do get a lot of calls from tenants, so eventually I hope to have something on our website to help tenants be directed in those areas. But we generally will just do the building sales all across the East Coast, but majority is within New York City.
And you also spend time working with young people.
Yes, I always like to give back. So, you know, you can only do so much, and working with the families that we actually, I see ourselves through Dane PCG and my company as a catalyst to preserve affordable housing here in the New York City area. And through preserving affordable housing, when you see a dilapidated building, and it's not the owner's fault, it's the company that the building is owned by can't afford to do the renovations, the owner recognizes this and lets it trade hands. And when it trades hands, the city agencies give different subsidies and monies to rehabilitate the property. And by that, they rehabilitate the units, which actually rehabilitate someone's life. So it's really cool when you see that. And I wanted to take my legacy, my career one step further, and saying I want to mentor those people in those communities, because they are so many underserved, overlooked individuals that have so much potential to go further and already are wanting to go further. You know, the Latino community has tripled in entrepreneurship since 1990. That's awesome. And that's New York City. You know, there is a big Latino community here, and I want to help progress that even further. Unfortunately, women, though, it's actually decreased from 1996 to 2014. It's actually decreased in entrepreneurship, and I want to bring that back up. So those few stats that I've read up on, you know, that's why I want to make sure I'm there for the communities. I want to make sure that I'm there for the families, and not just, you know, one generation, but several thereafter, to be there for them.
What would you attribute to possibly that decrease? Because when we talk about women, you know, you figure that there would be a greater investment in entrepreneurship, but now we see that retraction. What were you attributing these numbers to?
You know, you know, there's a lot of reasons why there probably is the decrease in that. I personally just want to make sure that we can increase it later on. I think there needs to be stronger role models for females. You know, Kim Kardashian has done a great job creating an empire, but she doesn't show the marketing that she's put behind it. They don't show what actually went into them being this social media brand. I'd rather them show us that. And when I Googled Kim Kardashian and charity, there was nothing that really came up, and that's upsetting to me. I want to see those people be role models, not just Instagram models.
Right.
There's so many Instagram models out there, or wannabes. Don't be a role model.
Yeah, social media has. I can say a lot about that. That's a show. That's a show all by itself.
We'll get JC on that one too.
Yeah. We'll bring him. Yes, and you know what he'll bring to the table. Talk to us about health, because you are a person that's working great in health and fitness as well, and you do well with keeping the body right.
Yep. So, in regards to the mentorship that I do with the young, a lot of actually young lady Latinos in the community, and with them, usually I'll try to help them in regards to trying to find out where they want to go to. And same with the men that I mentor. I think when you're coming out of college, you don't know where you want to go because there's so many options, and people forget to go back to the basics. And they forget to see that it's not a job you want a career. So many people are looking for jobs to make ends meet, but you really need to start looking at the long-term effects, because in 5 to 10 years, you're going to regret not taking that risk, where you could have been a lot better off. And that's what I try to make sure people see, not just the younger generation, but everybody. If they're in their 40s or 50s, I mentor people there too. You really need to start looking at life as a career, not just jobs. And that's a huge thing that it's hard because you're trying to make ends meet. I've been there. I was broke for 3 years eating peanuts, like literally peanuts and raisins. I know it sucks, but trying to make sure you create a career and a legacy is more important than just making the short-term gains, the jobs. So that's what I try to make sure that I bring, and through my work as well, through the fitness, obviously.
Right. Talk to me about what was the turning point for you. Obviously, when you talked about going through that hard period, peanuts and raisins, I mean, what became the turning point?
The turning point for me was just a lot of people told me I was too nice to succeed here in New York City. A lot of people created a lot of lies about who I was and what I was doing. And my turning point was growing up, to be quite honest with you, and not letting that affect me and just letting it just be noise to just disregard. That's when my turning point was, and I was still broke as hell, had debt, but just knowing that I was doing what I wanted to do and that I knew that I was going to succeed. I was helping so many families in affordable housing. I was putting things into contract, knowing that they would close. It takes about 1 year to 3 years to close affordable housing. So I just knew I had things in contract, and I knew that I was doing really good for the community. And that was my turning point, just being adult enough to say, I don't care what you say, I know I'm doing the right thing, and I believe in myself, and this is my passion, and I want to go forward. So.
And good still wins.
Yeah, it's always the case.
That's right. Heidi, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You got to come back.
Yes, we'll talk about affordable housing next time.
Yes, we will. Heidi Burkhardt. Heidi, you're still with us. And so listen, we want you to stay with us. We still got more show coming up. After the break, we're going to find out why real men wear pink, literally, figuratively. We'll have somebody here in just that.
If you want to stay in the know about the latest happenings in Español, check out Diálogo Abierto, BronxNet's own Spanish show, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. on Channel 67. The latest in news, arts, culture, politics, and what's going on in your neighborhood. Diálogo Abierto, the best way to stay connected in Spanish. See you there. Te esperamos.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
It's always worth it.
Whoa, faster!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent. We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness. I am a witness. I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Well, if you talk to any man, they can be kind of particular about the colors they wear, but when it comes to the color pink, well, that's a controversial color. Councilmember Andy King is involved in a very special cause. It's called breast cancer awareness. He now joins us to tell us more about why real men wear pink. And we welcome him now to the show, and he is pink all the way. We're going to get the full shot later on, man, but good to have you.
Same here, my brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And as we're talking, listen, obviously, you're not just wearing pink just because. Obviously, it's in support of breast cancer, and you guys are going full measure in terms of raising awareness about breast cancer and bringing men to the table.
Exactly. When it comes to breast cancer, people forget that men have breasts as well. Come October, we will be celebrating and recognizing and marching and walking against breast cancer for women. But today was our kickoff on Real Men Wear Pink. And why? When we talk about supporting our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, this is just a cause that the color pink has been designated for those who have been suffering from breast cancer. Over the coming years, we're looking at about 2,600 men have been diagnosed in the last year with breast cancer. So to bring awareness to it, we're joining in the cause, we're joining in the fight, we're telling men out there it's okay if you get sick. There's resources, there's people there who care about you, and we're going to look to raise funds. A number of us today who kicked off this campaign, putting together a little challenge to see who can raise the most money, to say how do we bring more awareness to men having breast cancer, let alone our women having breast cancer, but how do we fund research to eradicate this horrible disease.
Talk to us about the buy-in, because you talk to a lot of men. How many men have you got partnered with you so far?
Right, so there was about 8 of us sitting at the table today. Inspired businessmen, other community activists, and myself. We were there sitting there with a host of, I would say maybe about 400 women, cancer survivors, 1 or 2 men who were cancer survivors themselves, and we just applaud their effort and their energy to know that this is a disease which is hurtful, has an impact on your whole household, but you can live with it. We know over the years that there's been about 200 million women, 2.5 million women who have survived breast cancer or live in it, as well as we do know there are millions who have passed away from this disease. But this is something that can be lived with, you can manage it, and you can continue to live normal lives. And that's what we want to make sure that we raise funding to make sure that we have the constant awareness with any cure that we can come to eradicate this disease.
And when you talk about cancer survivors, obviously the stories had to be impactful for you in terms of pushing you to say, listen, let's do this. What was it that you heard that really resonated with you?
Well, for me it resonated when I got the call, but more importantly, I lived it. My sister-in-law passed away from cancer. So it had a real human component to it. A lot of times you look at people getting ill, whatever the disease is, if it never walks into your door, it's that other person that gets it. But when it's in your house and you get to watch that person who was jumping up around and vibrant and doing things, you watch them slowly just deteriorate and wither away. It's an everlasting effect. And, I have a daughter that's 28 years old today, and her mother has just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So again, it's hitting home. So it didn't take much for anyone to say to me, do we have to convince people? No, we should never have to convince people to do the right thing when people need help. And I say that to any and everybody out there.
So when you talk about this campaign, people want to be a part, what do they do?
Well, if they want to be a part, they can reach out to the American Cancer Society. We have a branch that's working out of the Bronx. Lizette Dorado is heading it up. So there's a whole host of information of how people can get involved. You're going to look out for me on work I'm doing on social media. If you want to contact me through social media, you can hit me on Facebook, Andy King Facebook, or Councilmember Andy King on Facebook, or at Twitter at Andy King NYC, and look out for the information that we're going to be posting up. So we want people to be involved, be engaged, and I will say this, as far as the fundraising, I'm urging everybody who was out there on the 18th, next Thursday, part of my fundraising at the Barber Factory, we're doing barb haircuts. Men will be in pink, smocks, everything. We're jazzing up the barbershop in pink. It's a Thursday, so before you get ready to go out Friday night or Saturday for the weekend, come on to the Barber Factory located on Laconia Avenue, 229th Street. Come get your hair cut there. All those proceeds will be going to help breast cancer and Cancer Awareness Month.
So talk to us about the district. Obviously a lot going on in the district this summer.
Oh yeah, we've been full of fun, to say the least. Just recently we had our 3rd Community Engagement Day, and we did our first ever parade where we offered resources and services to residents of the 12th District and the entire North Bronx. But the parade was spectacular, with hundreds coming out to march down Gun Hill Road as we entered into the field of Gun Hill Road, jamming out to We Are Family, and then entering where we had a concert laid out with the great Donnie McClurkin, who delivered gospel as way gospel's supposed to be delivered. So we're doing a lot, you know. We continue to have our Night Your Nights going out into the community and let people know what we've done. In Co-op City, I sponsor concerts every Tuesday and Wednesday. Tunes on Tuesday, 7 o'clock in the Greenway, and in Section 5 Greenway on we call Wicked Wednesday. We get artists from different genres to come up and perform. So we having people to enjoy this summer. And coming, you know, school will be out soon. I mean, we're coming back to school, so we're excited. You know, as the chair of the libraries in the New York City Council, I started a campaign, Reading is Cool. You know, not your pants sagging and not your girls running around cussing all over the place, but reading is cool. So we're going to be having our back to school, reading to school kickoff on September 16th on the Evander Childs football field. So we're asking everybody to be a part, and we'll continue to serve the district.
With the new mall up there in Co-op City and Bay Plaza, a lot of concerns about traffic and things like that. We've been talking about that for a minute. How are things going? Any improvements?
It's been improvement. We've done some cutouts with where the bus, because they had a bus when you came right into, so we've made some adjustments there. They're still going to take a minute before, as we're still trying to figure out how to build out onto the Hutchinson River Parkway to offer some relief. But you know, it's a mall. You know, traffic, everyone's adjusted, everyone's adapting. You know, the sky didn't fall down, the world didn't flip upside down. People are working, the economy is strong, neighborhood is feeling good, everyone's loving the mall. I'm excited about it. We continue to build, and they're great partners. Prestige Property is a great community partner, so we're happy about this.
A lot of excitement in the Co-op City neighborhood, of course, and basketball courts, and then you got summer basketball going on, you've got the tournaments happening, you've got the mall, so a lot of good things happening. Councilmember Andy King. Now, before I let you out of here, we had a conversation before. We talked a little bit about, you had a press conference recently about some missing young ladies in the borough of the Bronx. Any status update there?
Well, I'm glad to report from the first one we ever did, 11 of the 14 girls that we shown, 11 of them had returned home. We worked with NYPD to get more information out. Currently, Ashley Bassell, who was a 16-year-old who was out there 2 years in the United States, is still missing. But after we did a second press conference, she was spotted. And then the police were called. We have not been able to catch up with her yet, but that's the most important thing. Once we can unveil, she can't be in the shadows. She could be in a situation she just can't get out of, and that's the bottom line. If, you know, it may be a corny phrase for people, but if you see something, say something. If you see any girls that are out there that have been featured, we need the public to communicate with the local authorities, because at the end of the day, if it was your child, you want somebody to help your child. And if you're having crisis at home, now is the time to get help. Don't be too proud to ask for help, because at the end of the day, the life we save will be our own children and our own families.
So 11 out of the 14 have been come back home.
Right.
So we still got 3 more this year.
Well, currently, as of the second press conference that I did, there was 987 reports of missing girls. 4% are still missing. 35 cases are still open of missing children in the Bronx. That is too many, and no one's talking about it. And the sad thing is they're children of color, so you know, it's a little scary. I'll never forget back in Georgia during the late 90s, there was this case there was like about 25 missing black kids was just disappearing off the streets. You know, to find out bodies, parts were being sold, they were being murdered, they were being sold off like that. So I'm not saying this is our case, but when something goes down our community, we cannot lend a blind eye or ignore the status of things that are happening in our neighborhood. We gotta participate in improving our communities, no matter what part of the Bronx you live in.
Yeah, well, great work in lifting up the fact that these missing young people. We're glad that 11 of the 14 have gotten back home safe.
Yes.
Councilmember Andy King, thanks much.
My pleasure.
All righty. Good to
Remember,
see you.
real men wear pink.
Real men do wear pink. Yes, it's true. All right, taking a quick break, but when we return, we're going to talk to some Bronx artists who are showcasing their work in the No Commission Art Fair that's happening this weekend. Also, we'll discuss the controversy surrounding it. But first, we take a look at the community, elected officials, and the police that are coming together to say no to violence.
National Night Out Against Crime is here at the Bronx, bringing the police and the community closer together.
National Night Out is a great time for the community, the police, the clergy, community leaders, everyone to get together in solidarity.
Rights for children, food, games, giveaways. The kids are loving it.
I came from school early, and then I got icy, and then I'm gonna face paint, and I'm gonna go on the slide and the jumping thing.
Bronx District Attorney is bringing attention to two main community programs. Gun buyback program, where a resident can exchange a gun for $100, and another one under the name Another Chance, where on September 17th, anyone can clear their record of some of the outstanding warrants if they come to the Mount Hope Community Center.
It's a chance for you to clear your record and get rid of those outstanding warrants that you have, all right?
Council member Fernando Cabrera speaking out on the increased amount of the security cameras on the Bronx streets and how far the community has come in the recent years.
Tonight, look at the community out here. It's a safe place to be. It's a place where everybody, regardless of their background, city or religion, they're able to say, wow, you know, we have a great neighborhood.
Policemen giving out ices and grilling barbecue, getting to know the residents on a friendly, personal level. Many Bronx residents are joining police, having fun and helping to spread the message.
We believe that the community and the police should get together and unite as one because we are one.
It has been a really true pleasure and a lot of joy to see the Bronx residents unite with the police officers on the streets of the Bronx and celebrate this National Day Out with the 44th Police Precinct. Here in the Bronx, reporting from BronxNet, Lily Utina.
Hello, good people of the Bronx and beyond. Welcome to A Life in Art.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
The No Commission Art Fair, started by hip-hop star Swiss Beats, is an art fair designed not only to give artists free exhibition space for their work, but also all the proceeds from their art sales. Now, No Commission is coming to the Bronx this week, but two Bronx artists, graffiti artist John Crash Matos and filmmaker Edward Bagan, are here to talk about their disappointment at the exclusion of so many Bronx artists. And we welcome them now to the show. And gentlemen, good to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so, thanks for having us on. Thanks. So here it is, there's this art fair, and yet and still, from your perspective, there's a lot that's missing. So I'll let you start.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we saw right away, I mean, it was a glaring omission that you have 31, 36 artists, and only one has roots in the community itself. Which is John Ahern, who has been here in the 80s and the 90s, has a studio still in the Bronx, and is loved by the community. He's part of the history of the community going forward and in the past. But the problem becomes, and to be clear, we're not against any of the artists that are participating in the big show. The thing is just a glaring omission, the fact that we as artists weren't included, weren't consulted, and it becomes a pattern where we see this time and time again. Last year when they had the macabre suite that they did in one of the Somerset buildings, Keith Rubenstein's properties, it was the same thing. They did an event where they invited all these celebrities. It was almost by invite only. And it sort of ridiculed the South Bronx by having the thematic be a Bronx burning party with special effects garbage cans that spewed fire, bullet-riddled cars. And here we're going less than a year later, something similar happens. In the sense that the community is not consulted, the community is not included. And so what we're basically saying, how does something like that take place where you're saying that this is going to be a big event in the Bronx, and yet, just like the Bruckner Boulevard, it sort of just bypasses us en route to somewhere else.
So, in frustration with the fact that there is this lack of representation, you both have decided we're going to put something on our own.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to Ed, and immediately, the reaction was to do something It wasn't anti, but something to show that these artists are here. So we spoke about it, and we're doing it at the space that my daughter and I opened called Wallworks, the same weekend that No Commission is going on. So we're doing it Friday evening, this coming Friday.
So we know No Commission is started by Swiss Beats, and Swiss Beats has, putting this together. You guys actually had a conversation with him about the concern about the lack of local artists and being that. And what was the conversation, and what was his response?
Well, it started with Ed and David Gonzalez. They tweeted Swiss back and forth, and then Swiss called me because we've done stuff in the past, and the concern actually started regarding the place where the exhibition was going to be held, which was the Piano District, which is the name that they're trying to convert the Mount Haven and the Port Morris section into. So it started with that, and then Swiss started getting a lot of negative feedback on the internet. So we spoke at length Friday night and Saturday into Sunday, and he sensed that something was wrong. And it wasn't him. It was the people that he's working with that excluded some of the artists. So it wasn't him per se. So we spoke, and immediately he knew something was wrong. So we spoke, and he said, "Look, we want you guys to be involved deeper than originally planned." And he got us out there. He got me and another artist, James Rodriguez, known as Sexer, to come out and paint the facade of the building. But I didn't want it to be just me. I wanted other people to participate. So we got the task would come in. We have photographers talk to us about ideas, and so the mural itself, which faces right on Lincoln Avenue at the main entrance to the VIP area, is pretty phenomenal. There's so much going, and when Swiss, and his people were there, they were like, what were we thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Mistakes happen.
Mistakes happen, and it's unfortunate because I think what happens is when you get people of that caliber, they have people to manage things for us. So, the issue I think only becomes in this case where a celebrity loans his name to a novel idea, because the fact that artists are not having to pay any commission for any monies that's generated out of the sale of their work is a noble idea. So we're not against that. We're not against the artist. So it's kind of a faux pas. I mean, he seems to have taken ownership of it right away. But the reason we're still going through with the demonstration on Friday is because I think you have to stand up against these things. If we allow someone to preempt what we already had planned to get the word out that we're not going to tolerate these kinds of things, then it would be a missed opportunity. And I think that people like him and others that hope to come into the community and do things with us should be aware that there's a community here. One of the things that bothered a lot of artists was that the flyer that they were putting out at the beginning said bringing back art and music back to the Bronx. Well, I mean, excuse me, but the brother's made $65 million from his craft that started in the South Bronx, and he's a Bronx native. So we realize he made a mistake, but we got to make sure we correct the record, because a lot of the art that has gone around the world, like graffiti, hip hop, and others, which has become a worldwide phenomenon and $1 billion in the industry, has been generated through it, started in the South Bronx. So we shouldn't get it twisted. We just have to make sure that we maintain the record, and that with things like that, we have to stand or it keeps happening, because already this is like the second time.
Do you feel like it's hard for particularly Bronx artists to really get the showcase that they deserve?
I think so. I think that what happens is you have people, I mean, it's who controls the list. Let's call it a list. It's who says, these are the people that are going to be included in any thematic exhibit, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, whether it's performance, where it's literary. Someone has to create that list. Somebody has to sort of pull in who's going to be part of that. And I think too many times the people that do that are curators that are sort of working on a different strata, and they don't necessarily know what anything we do in the Bronx is about, but they don't also bother to learn or do their homework. So they figured they're going to bring something that always favors them. And a lot of times tend to be Eurocentric, right? They don't consider art to be art, and yet here it is sort of making its way around the world. And I think that when anyone comes into a community and tries to impose their culture on another culture, that's wrong. And we're not putting up with it anymore.
So the show will take place, and obviously you'll have your own. What's been the response? What's been the talk since you decided to go your own route, given the fact that this is coming in?
Well, I mean, the response has been great. So you know, Swiss is totally behind what we're doing. He's totally, you know, he loves the idea. He loves the fact that people are, you know, not angered, but you know, they moved to participate in something like this. So he said, look, you know, I want to help you guys out anyway. Like just knowing that is good enough. So the response has been great. We're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of artists who I might never even know, you might not even know that, you know, that live in the Bronx, that work in the Bronx, and there's going to be a chance for them to come up.
When we talk about artists, obviously people who are watching right now have their own perception of what artists are. What kind of art will we be seeing at your particular event?
Photography, acrylics, pastels, drawings, you know, maybe people, performance artists coming in costume. We don't know. It's open. The doors are open. They're going to come in Friday night, and we're going to have a great time.
Yeah, and one of the things we've asked the artists in the call to gather is that bring your art. So his space obviously is only going to be able to hold but so much, but we're asking people to bring something that they can carry, an art piece, whether it's a poem, something, so that also the street can be flooded visually with people holding art, so that you can see what's actually bubbling out of the fabric of the South Bronx.
Talk about the fabric of the South Bronx. So you guys have been here throughout the course of the whole show, heard a lot of the conversation from the green room. Tell us, what do you think with regards to gentrification or progression from your perspective, being a Bronxite? What do you see?
Well, look, I was here in the 70s. I've been here all my life, and you know, when I hear people try to take the word gentrification, which it is a bad word, the original connotation of South Bronx, I mean, if gentrification is the fact that it's displacing people, that people are absorbing other people through economics, right? Whether it's housing, whether it's work, and other things. And so now when people say that it's basically a dog whistle to activists, I say, I don't hear it, because I'm on the right side of the issue. If you're hearing the whistle, it's because you're on the wrong side of the issue. So I just want to make that clear. But gentrification is not a new thing. That's the label that it's gotten now. You know, manifest destiny, taking people's property just because you can, that's something that goes back hundreds of years. This is just a new manifestation of it, right? I was here in the Bronx when the fires occurred, right? And when people were doing white flight because brown folks, black and brown folks were moving in, that was one aspect. But also the people that burnt down the South Bronx are the same people that now have come back to rebuild it for gain. They gained when they burned it down, and now they want to again and again. Now the people that stood here, right, don't move, improve, and we did that, are the ones that are now going to be displaced because someone else wants to make a profit off of the property and increasing. And these kinds of parties tend to be used to sort of increase the value. The whole idea of using the arts in communities around the nation, whether it's Brooklyn, Dumbo, and other areas, Lower East Side, Spanish Harlem, it's been the same tactic. Seed it with artists that are not necessarily part of the community, try to increase the value that way, make it the new cool place to go to, and then get everybody else out, just so that you can increase the event. So, you know, so we're not putting up with that anymore. I think that we're a little bit more savvy than we were in that other period, and we're going to be a little bit more proactive than inactive.
Yeah. I mean, the mom and pop shop comment was funny because my daughter and I opened up a small little gallery. So if that's not a mom and pop shop, then I don't know what is. You know, and we did that 3 years ago, and we're thriving.
So mom and pop businesses still exist
Oh
for you?
yeah, very much so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I think that many people are still having around the borough, because you talk about progression and then you talk about gentrification, and both of those are hard words for some people to be able to digest, but yet still the conversation is going forward, and things are happening in our borough, and admittedly things are happening good, and you know, but I think the question on the hearts and minds of many here in the borough is whether or not they will be a part of that process and how they're actually included in that process. And so that conversation will continue to go on this show, and then some other shows as well. But before we get out of here, I want you once again to give people an opportunity who want to come check out the work, check out the art, tell them where they're going and what they can do.
Wallworks Gallery, it's at 39 Bruckner, corner of Alexander Avenue. We open Tuesdays through Fridays, 11 to 5, and everyone Friday night, 6 to 9, they can bring artwork in, and you know, and we're gonna have photographers shooting the artists, and we're gonna put them on our website, and you know, and and Swiss said that he's gonna swing by and show support, which is again, it's a great thing. He understands where we're coming from.
Right. And I think that's what's good about this. I think in this case, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We made a little noise. We got people's attention for the right reasons, and in this case, this was a brother that heard and hopefully is going to work with the community in the right way going forward. So that's.
I mean, we want him to come back again next year to do it again.
Right.
So
So hopefully next year when he comes back, he does it again. But this time,
well, now he knows.
It'll have a little different flavor to it. Seeing some pictures before we get out of here. So tell us a little bit about what we're seeing out here.
Oh, this was the mural installation outside the space where no commission is going to be taking place of. Right now, this is almost the finish of the installation from all day yesterday. Yeah.
All day?
All day.
Wow. How long did it take you?
We started about midday and we finished about 8. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good work. Good
Thank
work.
you.
Well, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for
definitely
having us.
continue to keep us updated. We want to know more about it, and certainly we'll have you guys back on the show as well.
Absolutely, man.
All righty.
Bronx strong, brother.
Bronx strong. We're keeping it here. That's right. All right, listen, unfortunately, we are out of time for today's show. I want to thank our guests for joining us. Most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Cablevision's Channel 67. If you don't have that and you're on Verizon Fios, we're on 33. Or you can watch us anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. Been a pleasure coming into your homes. Darren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Hey, I'm Darren Jaime. I'm the host of Wednesdays Open right here on BronxNet Television, Channel 67, and also on Verizon Fios, Channel 33. Want to invite you every Wednesday. You get an opportunity to see what's going on in the world of news, current events, debates, public information. That's what happens here on Open every Wednesday. So we invite you to join us right here on BronxNet Television.
You got to learn your body, pace yourself, and have fun. So let's go have fun. Let's go do it. The tricky thing about shoulders, your shoulders is a 3-tier muscle. You have your front delt, you have your rear delt, and you have your mid delt. So when you're working out your shoulders properly, you have to do 3 different exercises.
It's wonderful being able to compete with a lot of these young guys from all over the world. It's important to stay in shape.